that I'm actually optimistic about what's going to happen on campus. I think things might continue to get worse this year, but I think there's an interesting phenomenon called preference falsification. When you have people not speaking honestly, as you had under communism, when you have a whole system where almost everybody thinks this is terrible, I hate this, but I don't dare say anything. When you have preference falsification, this is work by Timur Kuran, and everybody hears everybody else's preferences, so they think, okay, that's what everybody thinks. When you have an unraveling, it can unravel very quickly. And that's what happened in the communist countries, because everybody hated it. And it fell amazingly quickly. And I think the pushback at Reed last week, or that was written up last week. So I think because most people, what we're starting to see is that a lot of people of color also say, you're not speaking for me. I mean, every group is diverse. And so when you have a variety of people, and you have progressive speaking, you have a variety of people, I think we're going to see more and more people standing up saying, wait, what's happening is this is not right. This is illiberal. This is opposed to the values of the academy. This is not what I want for myself or my kids or my students. So I do think that we're going to start seeing a lot more people standing up. And one of our goals at Heterodox Academy is to just help put out the ideas that people need. And this is what you're doing too. Just put out the ideas, critique the bad ideas, and put out concepts that can contest in the space of ideas. Get good information. So if people go to heterodoxacademy.org, on our research pages, we have all the information about what do all the polls say, what's the current information about students' attitudes. We have the history of this. We have a lot of research on who is more biased, left or right. Well, it turns out both sides are about equally biased. So we think that by just doing what we actually do well as academics, that is research, making arguments, being calm and civil, we actually think that we can turn this around. So if anybody watching this is a professor, I would invite you to join. Go to heterodoxacademy.org and sign up.
Okay, so let me ask you one more question. I mean, that sounds good, and it's good to hear that you're optimistic. I mean, I waver, although I wouldn't say I'm pessimistic. I just think we're in one of those situations where things could spiral in either direction very rapidly, and that worries me. What about the disciplines on campus that seem to be primarily devoted to the activist cause? Like, because my view is, or my fear is, that we've subsidized the activist disciplines. Let's say women's studies as a good example, but we could say social work and the faculties of education now as well. I think they're in the same bin. Let's put it that way. The women's studies programs in particular, their express goal, expressed on their websites, is to produce social justice, radical left-leaning activists. And so, like, for a while, one of the things I proposed in Canada was that the Conservatives, in particular, cut the university funding by 25% so that the universities would have to sort themselves out. But then that was a provocative claim, obviously. But then I thought, well, that's not a good idea, because it opens up the door to political interference in the academy, and that's bad.
That's
conservative and
right.
left.
No, that's right.
That's right. But the academy's done a very bad job of policing itself methodologically. And we have these disciplines. Women's studies, I think, is a prime example, and that's been very much criticized in Canada by Janice Fiamenko, who used to be, yeah, she is, and she's not in her natural milieu when she's doing such things. You know, she's a brave and tough person, and she's gone after the women's studies types on methodological grounds, particularly. But there are people who are working full-time at doing nothing but producing the kind of polar. So what, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yes, I do. I think, so here I teach in the business school here, and I teach a course called Professional Responsibility. And I teach my students about their fiduciary duties, their duties to their employers, the duties that we have to each other. And fiduciary duty refers to a very, very high standard of care. If you're managing someone's money, you know, you really have to be committed to doing what's in their interest, not in your interest. And I think we need that concept in the academy. We have, I'm not sure if it should be called fiduciary duties or just professional duties, but I think we have two primary professional duties that we must never, never betray. One, the most important one in our role as scholars, is our duty to the truth. We must never say things that we think are false, or allow people to say things that we think are false because we're afraid if we challenge them we'll get in trouble. So we have a fiduciary duty to the truth. And political ideological commitments clearly warp us. They make us do things. They push us. So we've got to recognize that if we let our systems get out of whack, we are betraying the truth. We are systemically, we have a systemic truthism problem. We are systemically betraying the truth in many of our disciplines. So I think we need an awareness of that, and we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard. Then in our role as teachers, we have, and here we really can call it a fiduciary duty. These are people's children who are sent to us to educate, to enlarge their minds, to teach them skills. If we were to use them for our sexual pleasure, it's obviously a horrific crime. But what is it if we use them for our ideological purposes? If we say, you've given me your children to educate, I'm waging a political battle, I'm going to try to get
use them as tools.
Use them as tools. That is horrific. That is unacceptable. We are violating our duties. So I think we need
right, but the response to that, especially from the postmodernist types, is that that's all there is. There's only ideological conflict.
Well, that's right. Perfect. So back to your original question, are there problem departments? Absolutely. So I wanted to put forth these two commitments, to truth and to educating, not indoctrinating.
Yeah.
And universities that embrace these highest goals, like the University of Chicago, I think is the best candidate, will probably find that they need to do something about departments that don't live up to those goals. Other universities, and I think Brown is leading the way on this one so far. I mean, earlier in 2015, the president had all kinds of statements about Brown is committed to social justice, a bedrock commitment to social justice, she said. So if some universities choose to devote themselves to social justice, that's fine. Just be upfront about it. Say so. So students will know. If you want social justice training, you go to Brown. But if you want to actually be trained to find the truth, to do research, you go to Chicago. And I think we're going to see people flooding to Chicago and schools like it. So what I'm hoping.
So that's the mechanism there. If they make their statements public, that the choice of the students will be to go to the universities that hold the principles that you just described over the other ones. It'll be a marketplace choice.
Exactly. That's right. So that's why I said when I talked about the emperor's new clothes, we have a situation, we have a gigantic market failure in which our top universities are offering a product that most consumers don't want.
Right.
And so my prediction is that Chicago is going to see a huge surge of applications this year. And if that's true, I think other universities are going to follow suit. They're going to take notice. So I'm hoping that we'll see a schism in the American academy between those universities that stand up and say, this is madness, we are committed to providing a platform, we don't discriminate based on viewpoint and politics, that's the Chicago way. And those that say, no, we're about social justice, come here and we will train you to fight for social justice and against the right. So if people have clear choices, then I think we're going to see a big change. And that's why I'm optimistic, because I think we're going to see that.
All right.